long way away.
I'm very far.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? EA team, can you hear me at the back? Lovely. Thank you, Ali. You're at the front, so you should be able to hear me. So, welcome everyone to the first panel today on global technology, local expertise, unlocking marketing success in Canada's unique landscape. So, we all know, and we've seen a little bit today, there are some fantastic global solutions present and active in Canada, but also we know that Canada is a slightly odd market with its unique landscape and unique challenges. So, and obviously at EA, we do our best to bring together some of those global solutions with local expertise to help you understand your customers, activate them in the right way, and measure the effectiveness of what you've done. But I want to focus on the industry at large and lessons we can learn as marketers and as data practitioners on how to bring the best of global solutions together with local expertise. I'm delighted to be joined by three industry leaders. I would like to shout out Rose in particular for being the only person who isn't speaking with a British accent, which I just realized.
I can try.
So we're the global, I guess we're the global whatever, and you're the local expertise.
They'll sound instantly smarter than me. That's okay.
So it's just slightly awkward. I would also like to say that all three of us are actually Canadians as well. So we are, just noticed that this morning. So anyway, I will I'll let my distinguished panel introduce themselves briefly, then we'll get into the meat of things.
Okay, my name's Simon Ross. I work for Horizon Media as Vice President of Strategy and Insights.
Hi everyone, my name is Lee Beach. I lead consumer experience and more recently added e-commerce excellence to the portfolio as well. And I'm with Nestle Canada, part of the world's biggest food company.
I'm Rose Hutchison from Rogers Sports and Media, and I lead the advanced advertising team, which is comprised of a number of different things, but a lot to do with data and programmatic, research and insights.
So Rose, I'm going to turn to you first. How would you describe the Canadian media landscape today?
It's complex, certainly, and it's challenged, but I would also say that it's challenging in that we have a unique opportunity to really solve some interesting big problems. And when I speak with my colleagues and my counterparts at other media companies, we're all working on the same things, and we're trying to better the industry from a media seller perspective, and being a broadcaster is trying to figure out ways in which we can leverage our data, leverage our research and insights, and provide a better service to clients. So currently, definitely challenged, but challenging, I think, in a good way.
So Simon, you've worked in a couple of markets. So how would you take that question of the state of the Canadian media landscape and maybe how it may differ or what particular challenges may exist in Canada?
Yeah, I think it's definitely performance-led now. I think for me, performance is the key word in the Canadian media landscape, but still very dependent on broadcast media. I think when we look at Canada as a whole, it's a very nuanced country. You know, audiences in the West are very different to audiences in Central and Eastern Canada. You know, and there's still a massive reliance on kind of regional media publications, you know, as you go throughout the country. So for me, like performance media is very front and center right now, very reflective of kind of the macroeconomic environment that we find ourselves in at the moment as well. You know, right now, companies want, you know, ROI is kind of the key word now. So everything is very understandably performance. But for myself, somebody who is insights focused, regardless of whether we're doing anything that's performance or brand related, everything always comes back to the consumer, and insights are still key to anything we do. So to answer your question, performance, but still insights are really crucial to any work that we're doing, whether that's brand or performance work.
And Lee, you work for, as you mentioned, a fairly large international company, but in a sort of Canadian specific context. So given what Rose and Simon have said, how do you balance those two things? How do you balance, okay, I have this sort of global framework, I have global access to global technologies, but I understand that the realities of this market have their own nuances. How do you balance the sort of those two things in your day-to-day job?
Yeah, and I think we've seen quite a bit of change, over the years, and now we're obviously at the cusp of major, transformation again, with Gen AI obviously influencing consumer habits, but also in my world, RDM, retail digital media, as a very disruptive space today. We tend to look and leverage our scale as much as we can, but that's only going to get you so far, right? And that might help with some of those, global partners. But for example, when we get into the retail space, that's going to be a local focus. We have to work with our local retailers. They're building out their capabilities. That is still in flux. It's forever changing. We obviously have a certain amount of investment for our brands. So we have to be very choiceful about where we, is it performance-led? Are we creating awareness? Those are not necessarily new questions. It's just that the answers are a little bit more complex than they used to be.
Well, are there specific things about this market that you talked about, the challenges and opportunities, Rose? Like, what are some defining things that you think about when you think about this market versus, because you're obviously competing against it from a media context and some of the largest companies in the world. So what are the things that really define this market for you, and how do you make that case as a incredibly strong Canadian company?
Yeah, this market is small, and I know that's an obvious fact, but I think it's small in terms of the people that are in this industry and the people that we work with. And I think we've often worked in companies for long periods of time. We were just talking about that. I've been at Rogers for almost 16 years, and I've worked with a number of different partners and advertisers and agency partners, and we develop relationships and we develop an inherent trust. So in this marketplace, I think that I operate more as an omni-channel solution, both I think as Rogers in particular, and I think some of the other major broadcasters do as well. But I think also on our agency side and planning and strategy, you're often tasked with looking at lots of platforms. It's no longer just specialization. And so this market, I think, definitely focuses a lot on how do we bring all of those together, and how do we leverage some of the tools that we have, like first-party data and retail media and all of the fantastic things to really tell a great story. So, from our perspective, that's what we're leaning into, is the omni-channel solution of it all.
Yeah, and I think that's, Canadian companies like Rogers have the opportunity to connect with Canadians. The global platforms can't do that the way that the Rogers and the Bells of this world can do. And I think that's really important.
Yeah,
that's a difference as well, right? I mean, we still, when we're in conversations with partners, especially US-based, it's like we're not an extension of the US.
Yes.
And it's kind of crazy we're still having that conversation. But then it's really understanding, what is the opportunity with Canadians? And again, we had one of our partners come into our marketing meeting a week ago to talk about Quebec. And it's kind of depressing in a way that we're still have to make that distinction that Quebec is a different environment, and we're not recognizing that, right? And we can't create those experiences that are going to resonate with Quebecers, and it just it's frustrating that we still are not recognizing that is an opportunity, but also we need to recognize that they just are using different media platforms to consume. But again, also with new Canadians as well, they are coming into Canada with different media habits as well. And so we need to recognize that. And we do have the platforms to reach those consumers, but we just need to be more diligent and obviously use the right data to reach them.
Well, that's an excellent segue, Lee, because I remember dealing with an agency who said, is Quebec kind of like Spanish speakers in Los Angeles? We're like, absolutely not. No. So that's a common misconception. Are there some other common misconceptions about Canada? And then I want to get to how we can begin to work to disprove them and to work to make the positive case.
If I can jump in, I think as a media company, the common misconception is that we don't compete at scale. We don't compete in the likes of the Googles and the Amazons in terms of reaching the right number of Canadians. But when it's April to June in Canada, you're going to reach every single Canadian with hockey content on Sportsnet. And, there's a number of other examples from media companies across the board that are Canadian that offer those types of solutions. So scale, I definitely think, is one of the major misconceptions.
Yeah, and quality, I think that's the key for me. That's where the Bells and the Rogers of the world, that's the big difference. It's the quality, obviously when you're using the global platforms, you're getting the scale, and you're getting the efficiency, and you're getting the low ROI and the low ROAS, but are you getting the quality? Are you able to tell the stories at scale? Are you able to make connections? It's not head, it's heart, and I think, again, it goes back to that brand piece and working with those local partners that can do that the global platforms cannot do.
So I want to dig into that a little bit. So quality often is not the cheapest. And stuff that has global scale and has global resources behind it can be cheaper. So, when you're making the case to your client, Simon, because obviously Horizon, I believe, is North American, but you're dealing with a lot of Canadian-specific clients. What data points work? How do you help them understand that it's worth investing in things that are not just scale, but there is scale, but also quality that's specific to this market?
I mean, it's a classic planning challenge, isn't it? But we say sales overnight, brand over time. And we know that we need to have that balance between short-term outcomes and long-term brand building. Now, that's not for every client, and it should be for every client. I just want to say that. But not every client thinks like that. So when we partner with clients, we're having those types of conversations. We have the tools which enable us to deliver those short-term outcomes and those long-term outcomes as well. But I think everything comes back to the data that we're planning with. Partners like Environics are obviously crucial to us having those types of conversations with our clients. And really, it's about the triangulation of all of those different data points that we have available to us, being able to, tell those stories about Canadians, and being able to then put that data into use. So that's how we approach it.
Yeah, I would also build on that and just say that brands have a responsibility to kind of meet halfway. And for us, we had a vision to create a single view of our Canadian consumer, and we still had a lot of discussions at the global level because we have businesses that want to consolidate, brand data across multiple countries. But our argument was, why would you want to have Canadian data sitting next to Italian data and Spanish consumer data? What's the value there? Because those countries and those consumers are just behaving in very different ways. So that was kind of our vision. We built that single view, and it was hard, right? I mean, it's not easy, especially in the CPG world, right? Where you're trying to drive as much acquisition as possible. I mean, again, we do have a lot of interactions with consumers, thousands of consumers every week, every month. And we were just not capturing that data. So we just said, okay, there's an opportunity there. Let's build it. It took us a while, but we're now there. And now we're actually, leveraging the partnership with EA to help us understand those consumers, and just really start to leverage it to create better experiences and to reach them on the right path.
And if I can just jump
Rose, please jump in.
On that note, I think back to one of the common misconceptions is that media companies in Canada can't provide services like attribution and performance reporting. And I think that's where EA can play a part with the work that you're doing and the media and the value that we provide. We also have a lot of first-party data, and we're able to tell those stories across different platforms. And I think that's, again, a common misconception, but something that we're actively working to do and would love to do more of.
So Lee, I want to wind you back to before as you're making that case. So, and I'm imagining there's someone else in the room who has maybe global pressures to adopt something sort of a generic global framework, and you obviously, although it was hard, successfully fought to build that back and to build that up. Two related questions. So how did you make that case globally? And then what role did local partners like Rogers, like us, play in that? And I wanted maybe as a framework that other people could use who are in the same situation you're in.
No, I mean, I would say it's not easy. And I think part of the challenge for us was we wanted to articulate what's the value of the data as well. Because if you're talking to C-suite, other people within the organization, you want to articulate this is an asset for us to leverage. And so when you don't have that, you have to find ways to kind of like pivot and tell the story. And so we were lucky that our CEO at the time in Canada was meeting with Google and Meta and was influenced by, you need to think about the future and coming to the table with your own data. And so that really created the framework for us and the support for us to move forward. I would say that we're probably unique in the Nestle world in having that view. And I always tell my colleagues in other countries, you need to be working towards this because this is going to deliver immeasurable value, but it takes time. And then the local partnerships, I mean, that's where it really comes to life. And obviously, Environics as a key part of that. I mean, we've been, we just overlaid the Prism segmentation across our entire first-party data. Again, it's not necessarily actionable, but the way it comes to life, and you can understand that these are real consumers, and they have different interests. You just have a different conversation with the rest of the organization, and it really brings it to life. And that's, again, I think we've heard a lot of times this morning already, scratching the surface. I feel we're just scratching the surface, but we're super excited about what goes next. And I think as part of that case, you really need to think about what is the value that you can extract from that. And from us, first-party data can drive value in media. That was kind of our low-hanging fruit. Insights, obviously, as well. Again, we're scratching the surface at that level. But also personalization. We're obviously sending consumers emails as well. But we want to create personalized experiences across our owned assets, our websites, and then finally, e-commerce as well. We have a couple of D2C stores. So how can we create experiences for those consumers too? So it's really looking at broadly as possible to say, I want to just extract as much value out of this data and this relationship I have with consumers.
So I want to ask Simon and probably Rose a question related to what you said then about, the CEO at the time was being in conversations with Google and Meta, and they persuaded him that sort of being data-driven is a good thing. And I think that's a very positive thing. And I think sometimes we can frame, global bad, local good. And I don't think that's the case. So I guess, Simon, first, what can we learn from some of these global companies? What have they brought to the market that have really helped us move forward or continue to help? I know I haven't asked you this question before, but so I'm just going to spin it out to give you more time to think.
Well, I mean, I think they've enabled us to drive efficiencies in our media. They've enabled us to drive scale. I think they've definitely taken the market forward from an innovation and technology perspective. And they bring loads. They bring loads to the Canadian economy. Unfortunately, I think media dollars go to those companies over our local partners, and I think that's the challenge. Really, is how do we look at readdressing that balance between the global partners and the local partners? And we all want the best for the Canadian economy, but we also have the pressures. Marketers have the pressures, businesses have the pressures where they need to be delivering customers efficiently, they need to grow. So we need to understand what that balance is between the global and the local partners. And, if there's no perfect answer to that question.
It would be boring if there was. So Rose, you're in an interesting position because you both partner with lots of companies like Disney Plus, you're very close to them, and also you compete. So what have you taken as positives? What have you brought in and infused from your partners and your competitors that have helped made you better at making the case to marketers?
Well, I think in the instance of a partner like Disney Plus, obviously they're a behemoth globally, especially in the US, and they've developed a lot of their own technology, and they have a lot of in-house expertise to execute media across the same platforms that we do: television, radio, streaming. So we've been able to leverage some of their teams and their learnings and how they go to market with their solutions and how they talk about their product. I think there's a lot of pride with the Disney product, and you feel it with every single employee that works there. And I think we can take a page out of their book and have some pride back in the Canadian media ecosystem for companies like Rogers Sports and Media. I mean, we obviously are proud, but I think there's learnings there in how, again, we position our products, how we talk about them. Maybe not on the pricing side, but I think we can definitely learn from them. With other partners like Google, of course, we work very closely with them on the sell side with their technology to enable our ad serving and our programmatic technology. And again, there's a lot of benefit and learnings from there. But on the flip side, from a competitive set, I think we've heard a lot lately on different panels at different events over the last couple of weeks about the services that they provide to clients directly around thought leadership, training, just providing them with more data and insights. I think we can definitely step up our game and start to compete at that level. Those are the things that keep me up at night is trying to, what are the things that we can do that are unique and that are different, that we can really provide a service that maybe they aren't providing that would be useful to you? And to you, the agency partners as well.
Collaboration is the key word for me. I really think you know, when we look at the Canadian landscape and the Canadian partners, I think we need better collaboration amongst all partners. I think I really do feel that it was, so there's been quite a few events over the last few weeks, and I think collaboration is the key word. Doesn't matter who you are, I think collaborate.
So I'm going to dig into that a little bit, if I may. So I often say to people when, if I'm talking about, you know, this industry and my job, I wake up every day equally excited and frustrated. I'm excited to see all the opportunities that we had of us, and you know, the amazing assets, global and local, that we have, the people we have. So I'm incredibly excited when I see that, and then I go, we're not there yet. You know, there's so much more we could be doing, which is where the frustration comes in. So when it comes to collaborate, I want to go do a two-parter, but I'll start with collaborating. What concrete steps could we take? Because I've been on the same conferences, and you say we should collaborate, and I'm like, yeah, okay, great. Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? What practical steps can we take, or have we taken, to really get that collaboration going? And Lee, I want to start with you. You have the money, ultimately. So what can you do with that money in practical steps to help move that collaboration forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, we talked about how long we've been in our respective companies. For me, it's 25 years in the UK, in Germany as well. And during that time, I've always been in MarTech-related roles, and you've seen a lot of change. But I'm seeing now that, you know, we want to have a bit more purpose around the partnerships. So really understanding, like, you know, where can the partner drive value? But again, where can you deepen the relationship? How can they be an extension of your team? We're actually planning a session with our key partners very soon, where we want to bring them in, talk about the plans that we're looking at for 26, but also to challenge us, right? You know, don't just kind of come and listen to us, but challenge us. I want to know what's best in class. And I want to know what we're missing. We're not going to think of everything. So I want to have that respective relationship with a partner and just be almost kind of an extended team. I mean, that's kind of the mindset we're trying to drive with our partners. And, you know, Cadel was mentioned earlier. We have a great relationship with Ransom. And that's just, you know, where you've built that over time. Doesn't always happen overnight, but you recognize the value and you recognize the role that they can play in your business.
Anything to add, Rose?
I think it's music to my ears, honestly, hearing that. I find some of the partners a bit too passive. And I think if you know, I applaud you for asking for partners to challenge you, because I think we need to do more of that. Agencies as well, not just.
I'm sure Rose would be 100% aligned with being involved in these sessions. I'm sure she is already.
Definitely. I would just also like to point out, though, that we have made a number of initiatives to collaborate as broadcasters over the years. We obviously collaborate on the industry tools, Numeris and Logic. We work with Think TV. We developed the common industry segments, leveraging Environics data to have wider scope of the application of that data. We work together on different buying platforms that maybe didn't work out, but we learned a lot in the process. So we're definitely open to it. I think that conversation happened last week at the Future of TV with the broadcaster panel. And it's all about, like, okay, well, let's start with a meeting. I think that was the comment. Starts with a meeting and a conversation, but there is motivation. I can feel it, and the conversations are already happening behind closed doors.
The future of the industry depends on it. I really do.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Curiosity too.
Curiosity.
You have to be curious and just
love that word.
Explore, understand what's happening. We can, you know, it's hard to be an expert with so much happening in this space. But just understanding, you know, what's new, what's changing, what's potentially around the corner, that's going to help you navigate the space and understand where you may have a gap, where you have an opportunity to bring a new partner in.
Excellent. So the second part of that was thinking about outcomes. So we talked a lot about, you know, the conversations your CMO, CFO would have had, probably about, you know, here's my outcomes tool from Google. And I know a lot of the Canadian broadcasters have or are launching their own outcomes projects. So again, a two-part. I'm going to start with Lee. So how, as a marketer, do you balance a fantastic looking but slightly opaque result from a global partner with a true understanding of your outcomes? How do you get that? How do you merge those two together?
It's tough, and I don't think there's any easy answer there, to be honest, because, you know, when you're looking at, you know, outcomes and measurement, You're just trying to get a better understanding of, obviously what's working, what's not working, and where there's opportunities to extend. I mean, there's obviously a lot of pressure to make decisions faster now. We talk about, agile, campaign optimization. How can you make sure you get results that will be meaningful and give you confidence to invest further? And I think, our partners are, great in helping us navigate that space, but I think that it's still challenging within the industry. We may have a common lexicon about how we talk about, measurement and performance and outcomes, but there's so much proprietary kind of, tools when it comes to actually the measurement part.
Yeah.
So it's easy. And again, I don't think that's a unique Canadian situation for sure. We just have, we trust in our partners to help us navigate through that space and make the right decisions.
So Rose, you're one of those partners, and we've known for years that TV and radio and other media out of home drive results. And you have the capability to show outcomes, and we're doing a lot of that work at EA too. What could help us get there faster? So outcomes is still something that's maybe a bit piecemeal or maybe not at scale. So what can we do as an industry to help drive that conversation further?
Oh, it's a very complicated, meaty question. First and foremost, resources. I think that when we talk about things like data collaboration, it often comes down to a lot of big thinkers working on a problem together. And, we've tried different iterations of data collaboration with different types of tools, and we learn a lot along the way, and it doesn't always pan out, but it takes a long time. I find the data collaboration conversation, because this is what I'm thinking about when I think about performance. I think about us sharing data or your agency sharing certain data and then us telling a story with that data. It takes a long time, often upwards of a year, to start the conversation and then get to the execution point. So we need to get faster. Faster means resources on our end, and that's challenging for us in this market when we're strained and obviously media and traditional media has been declining. We have to tell like a really cohesive story around that. So that's a big one. But I think the curiosity point, I think, is really key. Having curiosity and being open to testing, I think, is really important. Knowing that you might not get what you want out of it, you're going to learn a lot along the way. So we often call them learning journeys. It's more valuable, the trip, than it was the destination. So those are my 2 cents on the topic of collaboration.
Yeah, I do also think AI is going to get us there much faster now. I think, we've been through the internet age, we've been through the mobile age, the social age, we're in the AI age now. And I do think AI is going to be a game changer. It's going to speed things up. It's going to enable us to break things, and test faster. And I'm very excited and optimistic about the future and how we can use AI to our benefit within the media landscape.
Well, so as we look to the future, as we bring this panel to a close, I would ask each of you to give one piece of advice. So you're an equivalent of peer or a friendly competitor in the room, looking to balance, again, the scale and resources of the global solutions we have with local expertise. What one piece of advice would you have? And I'm going to go left to right. So Simon, could you start?
I think everything starts with insights. Whether you're doing performance or brand, everything is about understanding your audiences, understanding behaviors. And the more insight you have about your audience, the better the work you can do.
Top that, Lee.
Be open. I think this is the key thing. What I've seen from partnerships is that, and I come from a background where I'd rather have as much information as possible, and then I can make a decision on what's important, than you give me a narrow view of information. And so for me, that's the way we approach our partners. We share as much as we can, and then they can decide what's the most important, how can they help us by learning that information. So you're having that really good two-way street when it comes to collaboration.
Excellent. Thank you. And Rose, the final word.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't do a little soft pitch for Rogers, but we have the tools and capabilities to do data collaboration, to provide insights, to take it to the next level. So push us, we can do it. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Everyone, please join me in thanking Simon, Lee, and Rose.
Thank you.